Assalamu alaikum everyone, welcome back to AQ by Solutions. This is Raza and today I am going to teach you what are lambda expressions in C#. Before going further, I must tell you that by the time period that is passed by and over the time period the technology is rapidly changing, and lambda expressions are not so much new concept, but still a lot of new developers and the programmers and the students are unaware of this particular lambda expressions. So I'm going to put light upon this in today's lecture, and I will let you know how lambda expression eases your life with respect to the shorter code and quick code in order to traverse and in order to manipulate, in order to do so many things that you do in your databases directly on your C# code, along with the opportunity to debug that code as well, because we cannot manipulate the data within our C# code directly with the help of code. So lambda expressions helps you to specify how can you write the code for manipulation of the data within your C# code. So let's start and have a look what we have today. The first thing that I must tell you is what is a delegate. The reason why I am telling you this, because in order to move towards towards lambda expressions, we should know these type of things. I have a detailed video on delegates as well in my C# playlist, but a little bit of the introduction and revision of this thing should be explained so that we can be able to grasp more clear knowledge. Okay, so a delegate is basically what? Let's talk about functions. When we are creating functions, we pass parameters. Okay, so the parameters are of course with some data type we pass to the functions. So we can pass a variable or another variable. You can pass one parameter, you can pass two parameters, you can pass three parameters to a function, right? And more than three parameters. It depends what type of function you are creating and how many parameters you are required. Okay, so similarly, just like in functions we pass parameters, here a delegate is a particular, you can say, an object that helps you to take your functions as a parameter. There is a situation where you can be able to pass your whole function as a parameter. So why we are taking function as a parameter, and why we are taking variables as a parameter in functions? So these are the questions. Basically, when we do not have the original data, but we have to perform some task based on that data, so we assume that and we create parameters, right? So same is the case here. If I wanted to hide my function and I wanted to make encapsulation and I wanted to hide my original function, so I'll pass the parameters, the function as a parameter to the delegate, and then I will call the delegate object instead of calling the actual function. So what will happen? The methods that you have passed to your delegate will help you to call it when you call the delegate object. So don't worry about this. These are simple concepts. I will let you know in a while. So basically, how you create a delegate is simply created with this syntax. First of all, the access modifier, that is public, private, protected, okay, and then the keyword delegate, and then the return type, and then the delegate name, and then the parameters. Okay, so these are the parameters that you should take inside your functions as well. So what you are doing here, basically, you are declaring that this is a delegate, and this delegate must deal with this return type of the function, and this delegate must deal with these type of parameters that you will pass it. So let's have a quick example so that you can be able to understand what I'm trying to say. You can see I have created a console application in C# in order to make you clear understanding. You can see I have created within the namespace outside the class, I have declared a delegate with the public access modifier with the delegate keyword, and the return type is integer, and the name of the delegate is del add. You can specify any name but without spaces, without special characters, and here we have two input parameters and then the semicolon. This is a declaration. So what I have mentioned here in this particular line, I have mentioned here that this delegate is capable of accepting functions that are returning integers, and this delegate is capable of accepting two parameters when we call that particular function. So this means that you can be able to pass a function that holds two parameters and returning an integer type. So what I have done then, I have created inside the class, I have created two functions. Here notice I have created both the functions as static functions, because delegates always accept static functions. It do not accept instance based functions. Okay, So I have created a static function that is returning an integer because my delegate is accepting integer return type, and then the delegate asked me to enter 2 input parameters. So I have created a function with 2 input parameters, and then I have simply added them and returned them. Simple. Okay. And then what I have done, I have created another method with the name pro, that is also of same behavior, same schema. It is returning an integer, and it is accepting 2 input parameters, and now I have changed the operation. So now I have 2 methods. I don't want to call these methods directly, but instead I'll pass these 2 methods to my delegate object. So how can we create a delegate object? Let's come to the void main. Here you can see I have created del object, del obj equals to add. What I have done here, I have simply passed my method to my delegate object, and now what I have done here, when I'm calling this when I wanted to call this function, that is add, instead of writing add here, I have mentioned here obj, and I have passed 2 input parameters because add is asking me to provide 2 input parameters, and my delegate is also asking me to provide 2 input parameters. So I have passed here 2 input parameters, and the method is hidden within this, so nobody can be able to know that what is this, or is this the original function name. Similarly, then I have done what, I have added another function that is pro into the same delegate. So you can add multiple functions into one delegate at a time, but keep in mind the function should be of same schema and structure as the delegate is asking you. Then specify it, this addition of the function inside the delegate is known as the invocation list, and then you have called the function again, and then you can see the output. So you have called simply 2 times the same code, but you can see when you have added this one, the result is something different, and when you have added this function, the result is something different. So guys, I hope you have understood that a simple concept, that what is delegate doing. You are indirectly accessing your functions with the help of the delegates. I will shift this concept in a while, that how we get to the lambda expressions. So this video is particularly about lambda expressions, not about delegates. So this is the you can say this is the ladder. So the first ladder you have crossed. Now let's continue further. When we are dealing with delegates, there is a terminology appears comes into the context, that is anonymous functions. Anonymous means unnamed, or a function without a name. Okay, so instead of writing, instead of creating the whole function that we have seen in the previous example, you can directly create a function without any name directly to the delegate. So that's a shorter way to pass function to a delegate. Let me show you an example. You can see here I have created the delegate. It's possible to create a delegate within the class or outside the class, doesn't matter. So I have created a function with the name show message, and sorry, that's a delegate, and it is returning nothing, that is void, and it asks me for an input parameter, that is message. Now what I have done, in the previous example, I have created a function and then I have passed that function, but here instead of creating a separate function, I have created the delegate with object, and then with the delegate keyword I have simply satisfies the input string, and then I have simply opened the curly braces, that's the body of the function. This particular area from this point to this point, this is known as an anonymous function. So anonymous functions helps you to quickly do your code rather than creating separate functions. Okay, so what I have done then, after creating this message or anonymous function, I have called and I have passed one input parameter, that is hi, I am anonymous, and hope you have understood. So these are the 2 messages that I have passed, and now let's see the output. You can see every time the function is calling, but with the input parameter is changed. So, okay, so I have passed 2 methods or 2 input strings separately within this obj, so it is working with 2 different input types. So one delegate is used with the anonymous method, and this is the way how you can shorten your code. Now the next thing that we have to understand is how can you do more quick work rather than this anonymous functions. Hopefully you have understood up till now that what are delegates, and inside delegates we pass our functions, and if we have less time or we have to do quick work, we do anonymous functions instead of passing the separate functions. Now let's go to the original topic of this particular lecture. That's what are lambda expressions. Basically, if you do not want to use anonymous functions, or if it is irritating for you, then you can use lambda expressions. The basic difference between a lambda expression and an anonymous function is that in a lambda expression you don't need to specify the input data type, okay, because you have to pass an expression that is known as lambda expression, okay. But in anonymous function or in a normal function, in a delegate, you are specifying that this is the type of data that you are taking as input, okay. But in lambda expression you don't need this. This is the symbol that is implying that you are specifying a lambda expression, or it is known as the lambda operator, and you can refer to it as goes to and something like that. So when you see this operator within the C# code, you quickly understood that this is the lambda expression. Now the lambda expression is divided into two parts. The left hand side is known as the input and the right hand side is known as the expression. It's just like a variable. You can see the input is on the left hand side and the output, the expression is on the right hand side, just like a variable, okay. But the difference is this is the whole container and this is the action that you're going to perform. Now we have two type of lambdas, and here we have the first one, that is expression lambda, and the second one is the statement lambda. Expression lambda means that you are passing a simple expression based on the container that you have passed, and the statement lambda means that you are passing a couple of statements within your container that you have passed as an input, okay. So if you have multiple statements, so you can use these curly brackets, and if you have a single line statement, then you can make it you can call it an expression lambda, or otherwise it can be called as statement lambda. I hope it is clear to everyone. Now let's continue. So here is a quick example in front of you guys, and you can see here what I have done. I have created a list that is of generic type. That means I have specified the data type of the list, that is integer, and this list should name is numbers, and this list is taking numbers from 1 to 20. So I hope this syntax is clear. And now I have simply displayed with the help of a for each loop, and what I have done in this, I have displayed every number chronologically in a sequence, okay. Now let's talk about the original stuff. I have created a variable, okay. When we are unaware of the data type and when we are not sure about the data type that we need, we use the var keyword here at this point, and it will automatically implicitly understand what we are going to store in this. So we don't need to specify any string or integer. So you can specify if you know that what is the desired output of your expression that you have written. So what I have done, you can see guys, I have entered the container that I have that holds the data, that is numbers. In this case, numbers is my list, and here I have called a function that is known as find all. I wanted to find out all the numbers from my this input, that either the number is exactly divisible by 2 or not. So that's the modulus sign. So what I have done, what is x here? When you open the bracket of find all, you see you have to pass the lambda expression within the description of this function. So how this is a lambda expression, let me show you. Here x is the input, and this x is my own created variable. This is not a mandatory variable, but you can create any variable here without any data type, okay. And now what is happening? So x is demonstrating this numbers, or x is referencing to this numbers list, okay. So x goes to pick up every element. This x means that I'm letting you understand that what I am trying to say, that this x is representing every number in the list. So this x goes to x divided by 2, or x modulus 2. If every number in the list will be divided by 2 and the remainder is equals to 0, then find all those numbers and store it inside even numbers. That's the simple idea behind this. So I hope it is clear to everyone that this is an input, and this is input means these are all the numbers denoting the input from the numbers array, list, and then we have divided it, and if the result is equals to 0, that means the remainder, then the numbers, all the numbers that are satisfying the condition, you have to store inside this even numbers. Then what I have done, I have simply called a for each loop, and I have extract even numbers and put it inside an even variable, and I have displayed them. Similarly, I have done same thing don't worry about this spelling square root, because I am calculating square of numbers. I have mistakenly written that square root here. That's basically squares. So what I have done here, again you can see I have used a function that is known as select, and in this function what I have done, again I have referenced my x variable. You can create a y variable, no issues, and x goes to pick up every number and multiply it with itself, and you can see I have then again called the square individual numbers with the help of for each loop and displayed them. Let me show you the output. You can see when I first called the for each loop, 1 to 20 numbers are displayed. Then I have again applied the lambda expression. Okay, this is the lambda expression. So you can see how quickly you have done this task without if else. So if you do not have lambda expression, then you cannot do like this. Okay, and you can pass this lambda expression to your delegate as well if you don't want to pass anonymous functions and all that. That's why I have demonstrated what is the delegate and why we use that, and what are the anonymous functions. So lambda expressions are the replacements to those things, and lambda expressions is the introduction of the link, that is language integrated query. If you know lambda expressions very well, you can be able to understand link concept as well. See my school management system and see my MVC playlist, where you can find how link is helping you in order to do work more quicker and in a time saving manner. Okay, so this is the output, the square of numbers for the last for each loop because of this. So in single line you have specified everything. I hope it is clear to everyone. That's the basic idea, guys, how lambda expressions are going on. There are so many functions that helps us to provide lambda expressions. I will discuss it in a while. Let's try a complex example, a little bit more trickier example. Here I have created a class with the name student inside a C# console application, and I have created two properties within the class, that is known as roll number and that is known as a name. And what is a property? A property is basically a special version of a variable, because in variable you cannot control the input and the output, but in the property you can control the input and the output. See my lecture on properties in C#. In the C# playlist you can be able to understand this, the whole concept of the properties, if you do not know what are properties. So this is an abstract property because here the accessors are bodiless. That means there is no body for the get and the set. This is a read write property. That means you can be able to pass data to the roll number and you can be able to get data to from the roll number. Similarly, here we have name, we have to pass and give and retrieve the data respectively. Okay, so these are the two properties in order to store data within this student class. Now let's go to the original function, that is the main. And here what I have done, I have created a list, that is a generic list, and this list I have indicated this list that to store the data for students. So what is a student? A student is my type. Guys, keep in mind that object oriented programming means everything here is a type. So instead of passing an integer, I have passed a student. That means I will store the object of the student class within this list. So the list name is details, and I have passed directly instead of creating individual objects like student obj equals to new student and then pass these details. That let me show you in a while. You can write here, if this can be happen like this: student, let me zoom in, student obj1 equals to new student. Okay, and then you can copy and paste it. So this is another way, but it's a lengthier way. Okay, so I have created 4 students now. Individually, that's my list name is details. So details, that's my list name inside the example. Dot items dot add, and then you simply pass obj1 and then semicolon and then obj2, obj3 and obj4, whatever. So this is the way that you can be able to pass it individually. But what I have done here, let me show you. I have directly created the objects within the initialization of the list. Okay, so new student, that means this list is accepting the first student with the roll number 4 and the name Usama. Okay, and similarly comma, then the second data, second object, then the third object, then the fourth object, then the fifth object, and so on. So this list details has 5 students in it, just I have referenced you on notepad. Now what I have done, I simply apply an order by function, and again I have given here the lambda expression. So that's an important point. This is how, these are the functions that we do particularly in SQL in databases, but here you can see you are starting to manipulate your data within your C# code. So ascend is my variable, that means it's a container, and details is my of course the data holding container, and order by is my function, and here again X is representing every object within this details, and what we have to do, we have to order by it with respect to the X dot name. I hope it is clear to everyone. So order by will be happen. If you wanted to make order by in descending order, so you call a function, when you apply dot here, you simply call order by descending function, and the same is the case. So you can apply this, and then what I have done, within the ascend every value is retrieved on every iteration of the for each loop, and the data is displayed. Let me show you the output. You can see the data is appeared in the ascending order, though I have entered the data but not in an ascending order. I hope it is clear to everyone. Okay, so let's continue. Now guys, because the time is limited and there are so many things, lambda expressions can be used with aggregation. There are groupings. You can do aggregate, you can do average, you can do count, minimum, maximum, sum within your input container, list or array, whatever. Okay, aggregate means to sum up. If you wanted to add 2 numbers in an array, then the third number will be added to the result of the previous 2 numbers, just like Fibonacci series and all that. You can do aggregation, you can count, or you can calculate average, you can count the number of elements in an array or a list, you can find the minimum and the maximum and the sum of the numbers. There are certain other operations like distinct, except, and there are intersections and unions and all that. So these are the concepts that that we used basically inside your SQL databases, but this helps us, lambda expressions helps us to specify these things within your C# code, and of course these are debuggable things. That means we can debug these things as well. There are conversion methods as well, like to array. Let's say you have a list and you wanted to convert it into an array. This can be used to dictionary. You wanted to convert it into a dictionary, or you have an array, you wanted to convert it to a list, and you wanted to find up something, and you want to make it as an enumerable, and you wanted to cast it or type. So you can do something like these. So basically guys, all these are the operations that you can perform with the help of lambda expressions. Other elements we have, if you wanted to find an element at a specific index, or a default element, or the first element, or the last element within the container or the list or the thing that you have passed to the lambda expression, you can find all these things with respect to the requirement. Okay, we can check whether the input we are going to find is default or empty. There are boolean functions. We can get the specific range. We can check for repetition. We can also group by that we do inside SQL. We can also group data with the help of lambda expressions, and we can apply joins as well. Let's say you have a class with the name customers and you have another class with the name orders, and you wanted to check which customer has how many orders, so you can able to apply joins as well. And so basically this whole idea gives you all the operations that you do inside your database. It helps you to come and do those operations in one line with the help of lambda expressions. Okay, let's continue. You can see order by. I have already shown you this order by descending. If reverse is the function that simply reverses an array. And when we do order by in database, what we are doing, basically we are order buying with respect to the multiple columns. Let's say order by with respect to name, then order by with respect to age, then order by with respect to city. So multiple columns can be given here. So then by is the same thing that you do for multiple columns. Okay, there are other features that lambda expressions can support, that is concatenation. If you wanted to concatenate 2 arrays, 2 lists, you can use this function. And if you wanted to check whether 2 arrays are equal or not, then you can use sequence equal, and zip is same as sequential equal. Okay, You can use the where clause, of course, a very important thing. You can apply filters with the help of where clause within your data. Okay. You can skip something, you can skip with respect to a condition, or you can pick up something and you can pick up something with a condition. Okay, so these are the functions. We can select, and we can, I have already shown you in example that how I have used select. There is another method that is known as select many. So guys, these are the orders, or you can say the groups that you can be able to understood how Lambda expressions is working in every aspect within your C# code. So if I wanted to work with all the data, if I wanted to work with any data, or if I wanted to check whether something contains in my collection or not, so these are the quantifiers. That's it. So hope you have understood that what Lambda expressions are and how it help you to minimize the code. And let me show you one last thing after this presentation, that a practical example that I can show you. Let's start. Alright guys, so you can see here I have loaded that example that I have demonstrated you in presentation. What I am doing here, I am going to my students class again, and I am adding a new property so that I can be able to show you how you can perform Lambda expressions. So let's say I am adding a city here, okay, a third property, and with every new student I am going to add city. Okay, and let me write here some city names that can be Karachi. Okay, short codes, copy, and then paste. Let me add a comma. 2 students are from Karachi, and then ISL Islamabad, and then another paste from LHR Lahore, and then again it's from let's say Karachi. So I have now students with cities. Okay, now I wanted to find the students that belongs to the Karachi city. So what I can do, I can simply write here dot, and you can see the things that are coming with the angular brackets can be represented as an anonymous Lambda expression acceptable function. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to apply the where clause. You can see where, and so order by all the records that I have inside the details collection, but where x goes to, okay, x dot city is equals to, you can see I have applied a condition here, Karachi, and then round bracket close. So you can see how are you concatenating and how are you appending the situation, okay, in one line. So you are order buying the same thing with the Lambda expression, you are order buying with respect to the city. This is how you can manipulate data. Let us see what is the result of this output. Okay, one more thing that I must mention here is the city name. So let us concatenate here and write here value. What is value? Value is my variable here. Okay, sorry, this variable. So don't get confused. So value dot, and now I wanted to display city, because in ascend I have the objects basically picked up from the list. Okay, now let's start it and check what is the output. Alright guys, so you can see only those names are appearing within my collection that belongs to Karachi. So I hope you have understood the concept of Lambda expressions and how it helps you. The rest of the things that the function that I have demonstrated you in the presentation, you can try it by yourself. You can find information and the examples everywhere on the internet. So hopefully you have understood the concept of Lambda expressions. If you like this video, do subscribe my channel and share it and forward it to your circles, and do like this video. We'll meet you in the next lecture with some interesting stuff. Thank you so much. Take care. Allah Hafiz.